Welcome to Raising the Bar, the podcast that pulls back the curtain on the country's most successful leaders and how they elevate their business and their teams. Please welcome our host, Alison DePauli.
I think we've already had a lot of conversation about how communication is how you attract people to you, and I would argue that when you lead with your why, real magic happens. You attract people to you who believe what you believe and may not believe that we can do some of the things that we can do, but believe in us. So it is my pleasure today to have a conversation with 4 friends who all lead with their why in very different ways. And the ultimate result of that is freedom to have businesses and practices that we love and clients we love and a life we love. Callie, you place a particular emphasis on proactivity and prevention, and you often lead with a strong focus on high-quality mental health care. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you do that?
Absolutely. So for me, it really comes down to my personal why, which is to inspire others to harness their power to put their visions into action so that together we're able to improve the well-being of our communities and of our planet. And so over the years, the conversations I've had, the recurring theme continues to be in mental health. Mm-hmm. And so I've stepped back, did a lot of research, observing, asking a lot of questions, and we have a lot of solutions for episodic care. So something goes wrong, call a therapist. Do you have a mental illness? Sure, there are resources out there. But what I was finding is that there's nothing with regard to a proactive, preventive measure for mental health. And so I am looking forward to the day when it becomes commonplace that we hold mental health and emotional well-being in the same regard as we do our physical well-being. We think nothing of going to the primary care doctor for our annual physical.
Correct.
Think nothing about going to the dentist twice a year for our cleanings. Some people might not do it, but we know we should, right? Why don't we hold our emotional well-being in that same category with that same regard? And so this has been a vision of mine and something I've really wanted to see in place for a while now. And so I remember the first time talking it over with specifically you 3, and you were like, oh my gosh, that's a great idea. If that existed, sign me up. I have clients that would sign up for this today. And with that, I had a unique opportunity. One of my mental health platform partners, they have medical analysis, so specifically how our mental health ties to multi-chronic conditions. They've got that process and those analytics on lock. And so what I asked them to do, and I'm helping them to build out further, is exactly a preventive, proactive use of their mental health resources and tools.
Do any of you have any clients who are not having challenges with mental health? I don't have one, and our practice is very blue collar, and the blue collar folks are lined up to go to the therapist.
Right.
So it's a big problem.
Yeah.
I think for all of us.
And then what's the response when you reach out to a therapist? We're happy to see you, 4 to 6 weeks,
yep.
6 to 8, whatever that might be.
Too late.
Again, it's typically episodic care. Something has to happen to trigger that. And so in the very foreseeable future, I really believe that with all of us being mission aligned, we're going to see a program in place with our clients, with our communities, and our schools everywhere that normalizes emotional well-being, not exclusively mental illness, right? We want to proactively optimize our physical and mental well-being and health. And I look forward to us all building that out and executing on that together.
Nancy, before we get to question 2, can you talk a little bit about well-being versus mental health and how that is received, particularly in smaller employers who everybody knows everybody, and everybody knows everybody's business?
I think that that's a really important distinction, and I think we need to start using that term instead of wellness or mental health, but it is really overall well-being because it's much more palatable, particularly in smaller businesses, particularly in blue-collar businesses, if you are addressing a person's well-being, it feels less scary. And so I think words are super important. Andy touched on that a little bit, and it's not what we know, but our ability to communicate it. So as an organization, I think we have a particular responsibility to use our words carefully.
I agree. And you do have a very strong emphasis on small group, and not necessarily tiny groups, but small groups. And that is a particular passion of yours, and there are a couple of reasons for that.
It is a passion of mine, but it was not always my why. I will be clear about that. I enjoy working in all size groups as much as the next person. But again, when we think about the history of our industry, and we think around 2010 when ACA went into effect, and I'm sure no one in this room falls into this category. However, there was a large migration away from small business. I heard it over and over and over again. Oh, we've got to get rid of all that under 50 business. We can't afford to work in that market. And if you talk to a sales coach, that was the first thing they would tell you. You've got to go up market. You have much more opportunity for profitability. But I ask you, how many in this room, in your organization, have less than 50 employees? Probably the majority of you. As a matter of fact, in the United States right now, over 98% of employers have fewer than 100 employees. Think about that for a minute. 98%. And a lot of them are not getting the attention they need. And to compound that, 88% of those have fewer than 20 employees. That is a large percentage of employers in the United States. And those people need us more, even more than the large organizations, because they don't have the staff, they don't have the support, they don't have the knowledge, and they really look to advisors to be their trusted resources. And although there are a lot of solutions right now that say, oh, we can absolutely write a group of 15, we can put them level funded, we can do these things. It's true, but it's kind of a unicorn group that actually ends up being profitable in that space because we still have not refined our solutions well enough to go down market. There is financial risk there, and we need to understand how we do that. There's a lot of work that can be done. I know we, collectively have a lot of ideas on how to approach that, but that is a passion of mine. I do not want to leave 88 or 98% of employers, on the sidelines while we focus on the big mega groups and all the huge splashy impacts we can make. Because those little employers, they're going to get big one of these days, or they're going to have a brother-in-law that has a big company. We need to take care of everyone, including small businesses and individuals for that matter.
Callie, you and I had a conversation not long ago, and I am throwing you a curveball. I'm not really sorry, just so you know.
You know me and my sports analogies.
We had a conversation not too long ago because I was told something that Andy Neary talked about, you're just not big enough. And most of you don't know me, but there were a lot of 4 letters involved after that conversation. Talk a little bit about selling against it and selling to it, because I think your counsel was quite good.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. It really comes down to all of us being far stronger together and as a collective. So we have a lot of fiercely independent advisors in this room, and on your own, it's challenging to propose against or compete up against organizations that literally have billions, with a B, billions of dollars. And so on paper, it can come across quite flashy. I have all of these resources, I have all of these things in-house. I don't partner and align with vendors, I have them in-house. And so some fiercely independent advisors unfortunately lose groups from time to time because they're simply not big enough. Mm-hmm. And so how can we collectively share our experiences, share our whys, align that, and create solutions together? Because we've got what it takes, we've certainly got the experience, and we're rather opinionated. So collectively putting our minds together, we'll build solutions that will absolutely knock it out of the park.
Christine, you have the meatiest question today. So you speak and research and have a lot of conversation about equity, and fairness, and how that comes right down to affecting the health of people. What is the most important thing you need us to take away from that?
I think the most important thing to take away from that is to just stop and look around. Close your eyes and think about what life was like for you when you grew up. What life was like for people that you loved or love today when they were growing up. Did everyone grow up with a silver spoon? Did everybody grow up with transportation means to go wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted? Did you all grow up with the financial means to do whatever you wanted, whenever you wanted? I did not. I grew up in a single-parent home. My mother was a nurse, surgical nurse, had a very good job, but she worked full-time, and she worked in the open heart room. So she was on call a lot, and we didn't get to do a lot of things or couldn't go to a lot of things, a lot of basic things that all the other kids could go to because she simply didn't have the time. And we also many times didn't have the money. And then fast forward many years later, I too became a single parent with 3 daughters and got my first consulting gig, and it was a good job, but you know, it was a step back. And I was literally living paycheck to paycheck, trying to raise 3 girls with a big job, if you will, at what was then Towers Perrin. And, you know, most people looking at me would never have thought that if one of my girls came home and needed $20 to pay for a field trip that week, that I couldn't have handed over that $20. I mean, that's literally where my life was 25 years ago. And so what I'm asking all of you to do is to just stop for a minute, because most of us today sitting here, I think we would all acknowledge that we're incredibly privileged. And if we stop and think about what it's like to be in the shoes of that person, if you can't put yourself there from personal experience, get to know the people who are or have been there. And that alone, I think, will help all of us raise the bar, you know, leading with a more intrinsic why that is going to benefit everybody going forward in the future. Because today, our country looks very different than it did 25, 30 years ago, and that change is exponentially occurring going forward. So from a pure business perspective, those of us who are well prepared to take care of all of the individuals and all of the companies in all of the communities from a not only a healthcare delivery perspective, but also a healthcare access and payment perspectives, we're going to be so much better for it.
And I think as you ask people, I also grew up with a mother who couldn't have given me $20 if I needed it. And that's not as uncommon as you think. And it does lead to some surprising responses about access to care. And there are a number of voluntary benefit folks. I'm one of those that have pivoted out of the voluntary space back into the medical space. And I think one of the advantages that we have is that we're used to talking to people that make $12 an hour. We know what access is and how it can be truly challenging in a way that, you know, if you don't talk to people, you don't know. And Melissa, I think you have an opinion about that also.
Yeah. So we were talking a bit earlier about my why, and for me in 2010, I was doing really well in the tech industry. I got lucky, and I knew I wanted to make more of a difference. And as I looked around our country, the thing that I saw absolutely crushing people is our healthcare system. I mean, who here doesn't know somebody who has been absolutely crushed, whose life has been changed for the worse by our healthcare system? And it made me mad. And I grew up in a family where we were told, those to whom much is given, much is expected. I grew up being told that I needed to go change the world. And the way that I have come to is that I am here to help fix healthcare, which is audacious. Some people might call it arrogant, or even crazy. To think that we can change a $4 trillion healthcare system, you have to be a little bit of all of those. But for me, the why is in all of those people. It's in the folks in this room, it's in your clients, your employees, and particularly the children. Like, there are so many children that we all represent and are helping, and whether or not they get the health care they deserve will change their lives, which will change our country. And so for me, I think of our why and really tapping into that why as the thing that allows us to do the audacious things, that allows us to take big leaps, to do hard things. I think some of you know that I ran for office. The primary just happened and I came in third. But I tell people who are running for office that you need to know why you're doing this, even if the votes don't go your way. What does winning look like? It is possible to win, even when things aren't necessarily going your way, because you're doing the hard things, you're moving things forward. And the last thing that I just really want to reflect on is sharing your why. So we're up here sharing our why. I hope that all of you got some out of that roundtable sharing your why. But your whys are part of what keep me going. You know, I handle our finance and legal and HR and IT, and there are moments I don't love all of that. But what I do love is that it makes it possible to help all of you help your members and their families. And so the other thing that I would ask of you today is tell me those stories. Tell me about the families whose lives have been changed, who have been able to go on vacation for the first time, who can finally actually buy a home because they're not putting all of their money into a pharmaceutical that didn't need to be that expensive, people who got a different diagnosis when they went for a second opinion. Those micro stories are what add up to fundamentally changing our healthcare system, and those stories are also the ones that travel. Those are the ones that travel within a community to say, oh, hey, wait, you have healthcare that actually takes care of you, that actually supports your well-being. How do I get that at my company? And those conversations are the ones that will really actually allow all of us together to fix our healthcare system. And that's what I am so excited about and what gets me up every day.
I want to talk about something I don't think we talk enough about, and that is the trying and failing, and then never talking about the failure, and how that doesn't serve us as a community. I've tried a few things. Some have worked great, some no. And I have often been quite reticent about saying that. And now I'm like, maybe don't do it this way. Maybe let's try it this way over here. And having better conversations about what works and what doesn't work. Any thoughts, experiences, anything you want to share?
I mean, as somebody who's just done something very big and done what many people consider failing very big, I mean, I have trouble even calling it a failure.
Right.
I didn't get there this time. Most candidates don't win on their first time. And also, I knew my why going into that. I knew I wanted to change conversations around community well-being, around housing and homelessness and public safety in a way that I hadn't seen happen in campaigns before, and it made me mad. I mean, again, the healthcare system makes me mad. These things are things that are totally fixable, and we're not doing the hard things. And so for me, it comes back to also, I want more people to try to do hard things and to see that if you do a hard thing and you don't quite get there on the first time, that it's worth staying in it and keeping going, because you might get there on the second time and you've moved the conversation and you've moved the community.
Yep.
Do one of you want to hop in too?
I'm just going to say, wouldn't it be incredibly boring if we got everything right the first time? Like, seriously, my life would be so boring. But it's really interesting because I mess it up all the freaking time. and it's that messing it up and sharing that, like this community of women and people in this room, all of you that I've had the pleasure of getting to know and that I look forward to getting to know better, the more vulnerable we become with each other, the more we share our failures with each other. I hate using the word failure. The more we share our splats with each other, the better we all are. There's no reason to hide behind that. That's total imposter syndrome. And we didn't leave big consulting, big firms, big insurance carriers or big whatever to continue to hide behind something, did we? I don't think so. So let's keep sharing those stories and learning from each other and then being there to prop each other up. I loved, how you shared that you talked to her when that happened. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that keeps us going, and now you both are better for it, and you're getting better for it, and we're all getting better for it. So, my 2 cents.
And I actually think that we have a responsibility to one another to share those war stories and to share when things don't go quite as planned. So people are very, they're happy to stand up and talk about the latest and greatest solution. There's huge value in that, don't get me wrong. But if something doesn't go exactly according to plan, I think that with equal vigor, people should share those stories. And that if this is truly a community of trust and not just something that we say, share that, passionately share that. We don't have to naysay, we don't have to slam individuals or organizations, just candidly share what your lesson learned was. How would you take that failure or less than ideal result? How would you do that differently? How will you do that differently next time? And then share that. That's a big part of how we became so close as girlfriends, and I just think that's really important.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I mean, for me personally, it was one of the reasons I wanted to be a part of this organization, is because I do look to all of you as trusted advisors, as a trusted resource. And I do want to know what works and what doesn't work. And I think that with the, we won't use the term failures, let's call them potholes, that we all encounter along the way, I think the one thing that we all have in common is resilience. And I think the resilience is what allows us to, you know, dust ourselves off and get back up and get on our feet. So I think the vulnerability, the sharing, the trust, the authenticity, and the resilience are what make us a fantastic organization that I'm proud to be a part of.
And I think that people who don't know what to do with healthcare appreciate the fact that, one, as an organization, there is help, and two, that as advisors, people advise, right? Like, okay, let's talk about what to do here, or here's the pitfall. And when you come back, when you always speak with your authentic self, and I think authenticity gets a bad rap, but if you are just yourself, you know, I'm always the resident smart ass in the conversation, and I have a very big love of four-letter words you shouldn't say in public. And the more I am just that, people like it, which is very surprising to me. But people like it. People want to know who you are. And when you, because they don't care what you know, right? Nobody cares what you know. They just want to know that you can help them and that you believe that you can help them. When did you come to that realization, Nancy?
Well, let's see, I've been in this industry 35 years. Maybe I figured out it 6 months ago. No, I would honestly say that for me, I really settled into my skin in this industry only a couple of years ago. I always felt I was too small. I was embarrassed of my agency size. I was embarrassed that I worked with small groups. I would come to an event like this or many others that you've all been to, and I would just kind of clam up, thinking I didn't really have anything of value to bring to the conversation. And the more I do speak up, the more value I realize I do have to share. So, I mean, it's been a long, long road for me, but I'm happy to be where I'm at right now.
Melissa, how jacked up is the healthcare system?
How jacked up is the healthcare system? You know, it's funny because I got into the healthcare system because I knew it was messed up, and I wanted to be part of the solution. And with every step that I've taken, every layer of the onion that I peel back, I'm like, can it really be worse? Really? People do this? People feel okay that they're doing this to other people? How is it possible? I look at the price gouging especially. I mean, that is the piece that the amount of dollars that are taken out of everyday people's pockets that they worked hard for and put into somebody's savings account, some investor or executive, it infuriates me that they don't understand that $20 was a kid's field trip. Yep. That $20 was protein for the week. And they needed that $20 in their bank account? No, just no. The healthcare system is really jacked up, and I am so proud to be here with all of you to fix it.
And I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Raising the Bar is powered by Altique Consulting, the country's leading independent expert in healthcare cost containment. Astute employers know there's a better way to offer health insurance, and we help them achieve it.